just winding back to the beginning of this pandemic, I think last year you posted a $260 million profit. How much has that changed in this pandemic? How much has the pandemic caused you with this disruption?
I saw that in your writing, but I'm not sure about the 260 million. I think there is also a difference between gross profit and net profit.
Yes, yeah.
I saw also some 696 million. I think those numbers are a little bit different from the actual what we have. But I think most important thing is where we are now and what we are doing now. Our fiscal year has ended June 30, 2020, because our fiscal year runs from July to June. So by June 30, definitely we have been affected by COVID, especially for those 4 months, March, April, May, June. But nevertheless, we are profitable. I don't have the exact numbers because we have not released the audited financial statement, but we are profitable. So by June 30, 2020, our financial year, we have completed the financial year as profitable. Because as you can imagine, the 8 months were good. Well, not the 8 months, but at least 7 months, July to January. As you remember, COVID started in China late January, and then February was confined to China. And then in March, it started to spread in the rest of the world. And then around 20th of March, we suspended almost all our passenger operations. The unique situation with us, which has helped a lot, was the quick change we made to cargo. Although we have always been the largest cargo operator in Africa with about 10 777 freighters, dedicated freighters, and 2 737 freighters, in addition to our belly hold capacity on a passenger aircraft. But when we unfortunately found our passenger service was completely suspended at the end of March, on around 20th of March, then management made a quick decision to convert some of the passenger airplanes to cargo by removing seats and doing some engineering work with Airbus and Boeing. I think, if I'm not mistaken, we were the first one to do that. And then it was the right time also to support the PPE air transport from China to Europe, to Africa, North America, South America. And we have, I think we have done well at that time by also doing good to save lives with the COVID-19 spread. At that time, you remember, being in the UK, almost all of us, everybody in the world didn't know what to do with the COVID and how severe it was. And there was no preparation. Even the most developed countries in Europe and America were also not prepared with the right PPE, mask, Google, and the other medical clothing, medical equipment, and so on. So at that time, using all our dedicated freighter airplanes, and also 25 wide-body passenger aircraft converted to cargo, so we were almost one of the largest cargo operator from China to Africa, China, Europe, and China, North America, and China, South America. So for April, May, June, we have done very good in terms of cargo, while passenger was completely suspended. But we have to put that into perspective, because 85% of our revenue or 84% of our revenue comes from passenger. So as compared, when you compare passenger and cargo revenue is small, but somehow it enabled us to sustain and continue with business. So we are now, perhaps, I don't know, I have not done the research, and you might check, but we should be the only carrier in the world, the only airline in the world where we have managed the crisis without any bailout money, no bailout money from any source. We have not even borrowed money for working capital. And again, without laying off any employee and without reduction any employee's salary. So it is quite a milestone, a historical milestone. So now we are gradually and slowly starting the passenger operation. As you mentioned in the beginning of our discussion that we are starting Lagos, we started Abuja yesterday and so on. So this is where we are.
I think very much, as you say, you're coming out of the crisis and you come out of it intact. I wonder if you could paint a picture of the aviation industry as we come out of it, because I think you mentioned passenger, the market. I think something like globally, the air industry lost over £300 billion in ticket sales. You seem to have come out in fairly decent shape, although you've absorbed that hit. How do you quantify the state, particularly of Africa's aviation industry now?
I think our industry in the continent is in a very bad shape, I can say, because most of the airlines are in a very deep financial distress. And as you know, the continent is not as developed as Europe and America in terms of capital market, in terms of equity market, loan, debt market. So you cannot sell bonds, you cannot sell shares. So airlines are finding in a very, very difficult situation, and governments are not in a position to bail them out also in terms of capital injection. Some are trying their best, but it seems to be very, very difficult for most carriers in the continent. So as I said, in our case, we are okay. I'm not saying that we are not affected. Definitely we are affected, because, you know, you go to the airport in Addis, you find close to 120 airplanes grounded. So it is unprecedented global crisis, I think, first in the history of aviation. But when I compare the African aviation industry with the rest of the world, I think African aviation industry is in a worse situation, because A, there is no bailout money, B, from governments, B, they cannot borrow money. It's very difficult to find loan capital, especially when it comes to working capital, because they will not have also collateral to support the loan. And it is very difficult. Yeah, it's very difficult.
And I see, I think it was last year that you overtook Dubai, that great logistical mega center, as the largest port of destination for flights around Africa. So you come out of this crisis in a very dominant position. What are your plans to continue with that or develop that dominance?
Well, I would not call it dominance, but dominance may not be the politically right word, but I would say we will continue to serve the continent. We have been serving for the last 74, 75 years in good and bad time. We have always been a Pan-African carrier. As you can imagine, 70% of our traffic is not to Ethiopia and from Ethiopia, rather transfer through Ethiopia. So that gives you the volume of our Pan-African network. So I fully agree with your statement that we are coming out and emerging stronger. we have now inaugurated the new terminal in Addis with COVID-19 protection procedures and processes designed in the new terminal. So it's a big terminal which will enable us to carry about 22 million passengers per annum. And that has costed us $350 million. And all the infrastructure, the rest of the infrastructure in Addis that you have seen last year, the Aviation Academy, the cargo, the MRO, will be a very strong foundation now when we come out of this COVID-19 crisis. Of course, we are going to develop the routes one by one because passenger traffic is now coming slowly and gradually. We will expand our hub, the regional hubs concept. So ASCA is now up and running in covering the West and Central Africa. Chad also, although it's a very small startup, we just started with one airplane 2 weeks ago. Malawi, we are going to restart, and we have also a small airline in Mozambique. And we are also open to other African countries which may be interested to restart their national carriers or support their national carriers, because we are still a Pan-African airline, and we want to develop the aviation sector in the continent. So I fully agree with you that we will continue our leadership in the continent.
I mean, we hear a lot about Africa's coming demographic revolution, which might see the population of the continent double in the next generation. How optimistic are you that Africa will remain one of the fastest growing regions, particularly in your sector for future air travel?
I am very optimistic, and I have some supporting statistics and facts for being optimistic for Africa. Well, not in the immediate future, because as you know, right now, the continent is in a very bad shape, macroeconomic and fiscal deficits and so on. Because as you know, the oil exporting countries are highly affected because of low oil price. And as a result of that, they are running very short of foreign exchange. Whether it is Angola or Nigeria or Cameroon, Gabon, Equatorial Guinea, and so on. The oil importing countries are in a better shape because they are getting dividend of low oil price. So their foreign exchange position is much better, because although their export is still affected. But I would say in few years, this is going to rebalance, and then we'll see the opportunity of the continent as perhaps the largest young population in the world, with around 1.3 billion people, and around 60% are young workforce. So this is a big dividend, demographic dividend for the continent. And as we all know, it's a very large landmass for food security and natural resource and so on. So whether it is from Europe, which is the largest trading partner of Africa, or the emerging very large trading partner China and India, or the United States and Canada, Africa will be the magnet of foreign direct investment, because in the mature markets of Europe and America, as you know, the return on investment is low. But here the return on investment is very high. Of course, it's a balance of risk and return. So I see that Africa will continue to be the fastest growing continent.
And of course, you've tracked the aircraft industry for over 30 years with Ethiopian Airlines, and you've seen a lot of changes in that time.
Yeah.
And in terms of the future, you're clearly very optimistic about the future. What everyone really wants to know is Ethiopian Airlines' overall success is undoubtedly a source of inspiration for the whole Africans across the whole continent. What do you think is the secret of your success?
Well, I get this question from almost all corners of the world. You know, as you said, I have been in the industry for the last 36 years. So, and always Ethiopian. So that tells you volume of one of the reasons of success for Ethiopian Airlines. Most of us in leadership have been in the airline for 20, 30 years. So we've seen a lot of ups and downs in the industry, and we've managed ups and downs in the industry many times. We have seen $150 a barrel of oil, where it has devastated the airline industry. We have seen Ebola, we have seen SARS, we have seen 2008-09 global financial crisis. So we've gone through it. And I think experience, skill and knowledge, base of management and technical expertise that is accumulated in the airline is one of the success factors. So I would call it management and leadership skills, experience, and expertise, which is not common in the other parts of the continent because you see a lot of turnover, a lot of change of leadership and so on. That is not healthy for business, as you can imagine. The second and most important part of the success factor is the corporate governance. So the corporate governance is, we are state-owned, as you know, 100% state-owned. But the airline is managed by professionals without any interference from government or, I mean, it's managed purely on private business principles and economic principles. So the balance of being a state-owned and also operationally managed for business and business principles, the combination is a competitive advantage because, you know, many people say that state ownership is a problem. I don't agree on that because ownership in itself is not a competitive advantage or a competitive disadvantage. You have successful business organizations like Ethiopian Airlines owned by the state. You also have successful business organizations owned private, but you also have very, failures in private hands. So ownership is not a big success factor. I think the success factor is the ability of the corporate governance to separate ownership from management. Whether it is private owned or government owned, ownership should remain as owner. The owner should not interfere in the day-to-day management of the business. If you mix ownership and management, then you are calling for trouble.
And you speak with great volume of experience, 36 years of experience. Exactly. And you mentioned there the importance of continuity. And what about strategic vision? I think at Ethiopia.
Yeah, so that is the third. Yeah, that is the third success factor which I was to mention. An airline business, the peculiarity of airline business is the proportion of high fixed costs to variable costs. Because the fixed cost of an airline is proportionately higher because of airplanes. Airplanes are very expensive flying machines. You know, you buy an airplane for $150 million or $200 million. So how do you raise $200 million to buy an airplane? You borrow money. So you're going to pay this for the next 20 years or 18 years or 12 years. I think the average is 12 years. And then this airplane is a very high-tech, high-technology machine. and it has a design phase, manufacturing phase, a maturity phase, and so on. So both of the financial and the technology issue demand that you have to plan for at least 12 or 15 years. That's why Ethiopian Airlines has a planning policy that at any point in time, we should have 15-year strategic plan, active on a rolling basis. So we used to have Vision 2025 from 2010 to 2025, and now we are preparing Vision 2035 for the next 15 years. So the reason why we chose 15 years is, number one, it has 3 parts. The first 5 years, the second 5 years, and the third 5 years. Number 2, it will allow us to plan for the next generation airplanes. And also it will allow us to compile structured finance for the next 15 or 12 years. So I think people should understand that this is a long-term business. You cannot manage an airline from quarter to quarter like the stock exchange in London or in New York. No, that is now a problem, as you can see. Because, you know, if I manage the airline for quarter to quarter to please analysts in London or in New York, then I will lose my long-term side of the business. So this is also very, very important element of the peculiarities of in the airline business.
But complicated. So you're looking at today's activity and you're looking at how that activity might look in 5, 10, 15 years' time.
Yes, we have a statement in Ethiopian Airlines, we call it double visioning. Double visioning means you have 2 eyes. One eye is focused on today and the other eye is on tomorrow.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. That was really interesting and illuminating as well. I think there's so many business lessons that our African leadership readers can get there. I'll just see if Kingsley, are you with us?
Yes, I am, Mr. Peter. Thank you very much. Quite an exciting and illuminating. Hello, Mr. CEO. Thanks. Good again to see you today. How are you doing,
Great to see you. How are you?
Fine, thank you. It's good to see you again, this time via Zoom. Yes, let me congratulate you on the launch of the Terminal 2 of Bole International Airport.
Yes.
I watched the video. It's quite exciting, and I'm looking forward to seeing the terminal and experiencing the hospitality of Ethiopia. Yeah.
Thank you, and you're most welcome, and we're glad to host you again here in Addis.
Oh, that's very
Thank you very much. And I know you've been talking so well with Peter, and Peter has done a great job. I've listened in, and sorry for the network issue that we had that we'll try to fix. But my question is, I don't know where you'd start with Peter, but my question is, Ethiopian Airlines, we followed the growth phase of Ethiopian Airlines. We've seen the tremendous work that you've done in the past couple of years. You've maintained the dominance across the continent. It's the largest airline and the most profitable and all that. Now, with the COVID-19 disruption, is there going to be a change in the status of Ethiopian Airlines? Are we going to see a dip in its reputation as regards being the largest on the continent? Or are we expecting to see a spike in terms of activities?
I was telling to Peter, in fact, you will see a lot of growth and a lot of expansion because, we have done very well in the last 5-6 months because you may be surprised to hear that we have never stopped flying. Never stopped flying.
Wow.
So the only thing missing from our airplanes were passengers. Otherwise, our airplanes have been all over the world, delivering COVID-19 PPE to Europe, North America, South America, Africa. So, we have done well by doing good. And we have got a lot of credit from countries in Europe. We have letters written by the Prime Minister of Portugal, Spain, Canada, Foreign Minister of the State Secretary of the United States, and Brazil government and African governments for supporting their countries and also their people in delivering PPE, especially in those dark days, in April and May, when no one knew what to do with the COVID. So we've done very good, very well at that time. So now we are coming out stronger. And of course, as you know, the industry in Africa is devastated. So we're going to expand our services. Of course, the passenger market is coming very slowly and gradually, but we will see expansion, a lot of expansion and growth.
Yeah. Now, I think let me let Peter do the next question while I take the next one.
Okay. Well, a very positive picture, which is painted there. I mean, I think if we look at the African economic scene, obviously in common with the whole world, it's been damaged. We've got the African Continental Free Trade Agreement coming in next year. How much of a boost for Ethiopian Airlines and how much of a boost for African economy do you think it will be?
I'm very optimistic on the Continental Free Trade Agreement, which is now ratified by most countries, I think all. And parallel to it also, there is SATM, as you know, Single African Air Transport Market. So combined, it will develop the inter-Africa connectivity, which has been very difficult for all of us, I mean, in the continent, as you know. It is always the egg or the chicken, because you go around vicious circle because you cannot develop the network because you don't have the critical mass of passengers traveling from one country to the other country in the continent. And because of there is no enough connectivity, people do not travel as much as in Europe within the continent. So it has always been a vicious circle. As I said, the egg or the chicken. But now the Continental Free Trade Agreement will give a boost to the air connectivity within Africa, because African countries start to trade between and among themselves more and more. As we speak today, I think it's between 16 to 18% of African trade that is within the continent. The rest of the trade, Africa is with Europe, with China, and the rest of the world. So I would expect to see a lot of trade, cross-border trade, investment, and tourism flow between African countries. And that is much needed, not only for air connectivity, I mean the growth and expansion of air connectivity, but also for the continent itself, because with the unfortunate trade war going now between China and Africa, I mean China and the US, and sometimes US and Europe, with a lot of protectionism and nationalism taking place, unfortunately, in the place of globalization and global trade. I think Africa has to secure its own trade within the continent. And there is a lot, because as I said, it's a very large landmass, 1.3 billion people, full of, I mean, rich in natural resources. So I'm very optimistic on that.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, let me just ask this question. I mean, in February 2020, the IATA, that's your organization for air transport, Air Transport Association of Africa. It was projected, Africa was projected to become one of the fastest growing regions for aviation. I heard what you were saying earlier. In the next 20 years, they projected that there should be an annual, growth rate of about 5%. Now, with the prevailing realities and the new normal, is this projection still very tenable, or is there going to be a review of that projection?
I think there will be a review, but it's only for short term, because I would say the next 2 years will be challenging, because Number one, people will take some time to develop confidence to travel back to, you know, to mobility around the world. Second, a lot of countries and a lot of people will be coming out of this crisis economically weak, and therefore travel, as we know, is always discretionary expenditure, and therefore we will not see tourism coming back quickly. We will not see also VFR coming back quickly. VFR stands for visiting friends and relatives. So the African diaspora in Europe and America may find it extremely difficult economically to come in large numbers to visit their friends and relatives back home as they used to in the past, but gradually that is going to come. So I would say the next 2 years will be challenging because it will take at least 2-3 years, the recovery. But going forward, the continent has still the opportunities and the potential, and we'll see quick and fast growth coming back to the continent. So
now talking about specifics actually, and the recent report released by IATA still, you know, the Africa Transport Association of Africa, they had mentioned that the aviation industry is going to lose about $314 billion in terms of ticket sales. Now, let's do the numbers here because of the pandemic and the COVID-19 pandemic. What, in terms of for your industry, we're talking about Africa as it were, can we, the aviation industry for Africa, can you quantify how much we've lost in terms of numbers and ticket sales and all the rest of it? Do you have a figure for that?
I think the projection is around $2 billion for this year, for 2020. And then 2021, $2 billion. And then 2021 will start slow gradual recovery. But, you know, my personal view is I think Africa is going to take off faster than the rest of the world.
Oh, wow, interesting. Interesting. Yeah. Because I was talking to someone from your industry the last time, and he had mentioned that Ethiopian Airlines, unlike other industries and other companies, weren't actually thinking about downsizing and right-sizing and relieving people of their duties. Do you still stand by that? I mean, I thought
that is a wrong statement, Kingsley. Ethiopian Airlines is, as I said to Peter before he came in, I don't have the numbers, I don't have the comparison, I don't have the research in my hand, but it should be the only airline in the world today which has managed the crisis without any bailout money from any source, without any layoff of any employee, no employee layoff, and without any reduction of salary, employee salary.
So interesting.
Yeah, this is very interesting. I told Peter to do his journalistic research whether it is we are the only one or not. I believe we are the only one because look at British Airways. I think they are borrowing money. Lufthansa, the German government gave them 12 billion euros. Air France took 7 billion euros from French government. KLM took 4 billion euros from the Dutch government, and so on. And the American carriers took collectively 25 billion US dollars from Uncle Sam. So, you know, all others are, but we have not taken any money from anyone. We are managing for our own.
Interesting. I've never had a doubt in the capacity of Ethiopian Airlines.
Right.
We had this discussion in South Africa the last time.
You may be surprised that we are taking delivery of airplanes. I think in end of this month we are taking 1787-900, and then we'll take Airbus A350s in I think October or December. So no scaling back. We are growing.
I think we should export the Ethiopian example, the Ethiopian airline example across the globe because it's an example of how business should be run. Peter, what do you think?
I agree. I agree. I think it's inspiring. This is one of the most inspiring afternoons I've spent for a long time, actually. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you.
All right, over to you, Peter.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
thank you very much.
Thank you so much, and I really look forward to the day when Kingsley and I will be in Addis, and we can.
Anytime, come back, because you know we human beings are not meant to be locked down. We are here. We are designed by God to move around, work around. So we should not be scared of COVID-19.
A good man. You're setting a fine personal example as well as a commercial example, which is a very good combination.
As I told you, you know, I've never stopped coming to the office. I'm always every single day in the office.
Very good. Very
all
good.
Right. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And again, we Peter and I were talking, you know, on the need for a sustained partnership, you know, with Ethiopian Airlines beyond the, you know, the day-to-day activity. We're looking at the possibility of, you know, we do a lot of movement of our magazines across across the printing areas to our destinations, and we will do with a lot of support from Ethiopian Airlines to help us move this documents. And also our editorial team, we move a lot. Like we should be visiting you. If we get a date now, Peter and I should actually be in Addis as quickly as possible to see some of these things for ourselves, and probably do a very, very detailed report and have an edition dedicated to Ethiopian Airlines and the success story that it has become. So we'd like to have a discussion with maybe anyone you would direct us to on the possibility of working with.
I will do that. I will direct you to our VP, who is in charge of marketing and promotion, and we will have a partnership.
All right.
That would be great.
All right.
And
thank you so much. Peter,
great.
Any last word from you?
Yeah.
Thank you.
It will be fantastic to do something on the biosecurity at the new terminal as well. I mean, I was listening to the BBC News here today, and the British government is still deciding whether to test or not to test at Heathrow. It's, you know, they just don't seem to have a coherent strategy. So in a sense, again, Ethiopian Airlines is leading the world in sure-footedness and actually creating very biologically safe areas for which will encourage passengers to come back. But there is something for the whole world can learn from what you're doing in Addis, I think, which is great.
Thank you. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Kingsley. Great to have you again.
Thank you very much.
We'll see you in Addis one of these days.
Great.
All right, okay, no problem. We'll take it up with the VP. We'll take it up with the Vice President. Thank you so much. Yes, thank you.
Okay, great.
Thanks very much.
Bye. Have a good day.
Okay. Yeah.